Lovely. Thanks very much. And I'll have to say it's been a whirlwind to get to where we are today in terms of what we've been going through in Kingspan over the last year in particular, looking at digital transformation and some of the great people we've met on that journey. Some people are in front of me here today who I've been in their offices asking them questions, trying to understand even what is BIM. And that's really where it all started. With a company like Kingspan, in terms of what we do and how we do it, it's primarily all around building products. And traditionally, for the people in this room, that is the insulation boards that's probably in your houses, to the shell of what is Crow Park, to the standing seam roofs in the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. And our footprint all over the world now is in over sales operations in over 100 countries. Actually, it's probably closer to 150 now, and over 115 manufacturing facilities. So with that, we're very comfortable with talking about thermal values and span tables and all that kind of thing. But to start talking about digital is very different to what we know and how we manage our business. And really, for me, I've been working in marketing for the last 13 years across Kingspan, and why I have been asked to take a lead on this is we want to go on this journey from the viewpoint of the customer, and starting with the customer with the decisions that we make, because more often than not it would be easy to make technical decisions around the technologies, and we've done plenty of this over the years and learned. We've just gone through a massive reprogram of our websites where we had 200 websites as a result of all the acquisitions that we've made. So with that in mind and the customer journey in mind, there are a few slides I want to take you through today in terms of where we have come, touch on our investment with Invicara, and the guys are in the room here today to support me, which is wonderful. And I would love to honestly stand up here and be able to tell you that I know exactly where this journey is going, but the truth is we don't. And we're very much at the beginning of that, really. And to have a position now reporting at a senior level into our CEO, which is typically, has always traditionally been just MDs of businesses, shows you where it is on our agenda. The press release that we put out 2 weeks ago, something very different happened that never happened before. And I have put out releases myself where we have made a 300 million investment in a factory facility across South America. But the investment we made in Invicara started to ask different questions, and even of ourselves, which is great. And there must be some shift that is starting to happen in the industry. There's a lot of content here that I'm sure people in this room are familiar with, but when we, as a manufacturer, when we look at a slide like this that tells us the construction industry is practically at the bottom of a list like this in terms of digitalization, or this is actually digitization, but they're talking about the top 20, they take 22 industries across the world, and the construction industry is second from the bottom. And this is how we plan on managing our own journey. When we look at the words across the top there and the different types of ways you can manage and look at how are you digitizing or digitalizing, and really the one for us as manufacturers where we would be concerned about is the market making piece. So it's very important for us that the journey that we go on, that we take the architects, the contractors and our customers with us on that journey to into new markets and into new opportunities. So a slide like this, there's probably 3 or 4 out of the 10 technologies here, again, that we would be very comfortable with, that would be in our sphere. The number 1 around the prefabrication and modular construction, something we've been advocating and believe in for as long as Kingspan has been born. And when you think about our insulated panels, which is now 70% of our business, this is the premise on which it exists. But when you start to go through this and you look at things like number 6, big data, predictive analytics, and 10, building information and modelling, a company like Kingspan, we're completely out of our depth. So going on this journey, and the partners with us, we want to be leading in these areas. and we want to invest in the core areas for the future. And we actually see ourselves as having a responsibility around this in terms of driving the industry on. And you may have seen in some of our commentary that we put out last week, this isn't just about Kingspan. For us, it's to take a lead in the industry. And to be, have the opportunity to come and speak at events like this, and hopefully partner with people in this room and amongst other rooms in terms of how we go on this journey, because it absolutely is a collaborative effort. So, when we think about how we interact with buildings and how we interact with the whole supply chain of how that happens and how that has changed and the potential to change over the next few years. And I was at actually a BIM World conference in Germany a couple of weeks ago, and I seen they were talking about 50 billion connected devices in the world by 2020. I think there's about 10 billion they talk about today. That it should make what we're trying to do a lot easier, because of firstly because of the connectivity and Wi-Fi that exists, but also when you think about wearable technologies. And you see the rise in, obviously in the sports sector here with your Fitbits and all of that, and how that's all going to advance. But when I think of our communication departments and our technical departments and the way we're still dealing with customers and how we do things, yes, there has been some advancements, but it really hasn't shifted in any gears in terms of, how we use these technologies. And clearly, the industry has to go on a journey together, because there's no point in me launching, glasses, different types of things, if the customer base and the architectural firms and all of that don't move with us. But I think it's the manufacturers that actually have been a little bit behind on this, because a lot of the contractors I have met with, I was well impressed with some of the journeys that they're on to digitize, and in particular what's happening around the BIM sphere. At that conference at BIM World, they talked about artificial intelligence and virtual reality, and these things there was a guy from Google, and he was talking about how all of this is commodity, and it's like, how have we not embraced some of this stuff more? So that's where we're going to be putting a lot of our investments. And you can see it here a little bit more real when I think of the 90 or 100 page installation guide that we write out and print, and there is still some of that going on. We are advancing in some areas, but that is the reality of still what's happening. And I guess the smartphone and the rise of the smartphone, to think most people have smartphones in the world now, which there was no smartphone 10 years ago, so there was no point in us making our communications around that at that point. But now, because of these technologies, there is an opportunity for us to be able to lead and be able to get instant in-field information back to the factories or whatever that might be, which is very, very exciting really for the industry. Just want to briefly touch on e-commerce, not going to dwell in on it. It is an area for particular parts of our business that suits very well, that's transactional led, fast moving type products. So we have a business unit now set up in this area. And it's all in response really to the market demands around this, that people want to be able to get some of these products very quickly, and it's very easy to select. But on any of our custom work, more around our insulated panels and even our insulation boards, and that is not in this sphere at all yet. But we do see from an ordering standpoint and all of that isn't that far away. So there's a lot of people in this room that knows a lot more about BIM than I do, so I'm certainly not going to pretend to be a professor in it, but it is the one nugget, and probably the first time I was able to get attention at a board level in terms of taking this seriously, because what BIM is enabling us, and what Anand and John here in the audience have taught us over the last 6 to 8 months, is where we can take this. It's not about where we have it today, but where we can take it. So our investment is more for us almost in an R&D innovation capacity about where we can take things. And I go back to my days when I worked in the States. I was over there for 5 years, and I always, at the trade shows, I used to go to the Autodesk stands and see what they're doing, and the challenges that existed back then around computer hardware and software because of the cloud, all of what was a huge challenge then is now fundamentally shifting. And this idea of common data and having the single source of truth around a product, but also around a project, gets us very excited, because as manufacturers, we only own one part of that whole customer journey and that whole life cycle through conception, designing and building buildings, and it is a big undertaking. You all know that. So that piece that we own, we want to try and obviously digitalize and automate and make that as intelligent as we possibly can, but we also want to influence around that. So the whole journey through for the customer can become, based on a whole BIM strategy. So we see it as a stepping stone as well for what we call Industry 4.0. And for us, with the manufacturing facilities that we have, to be able to automate and learn on that will be very important. So just a little bit about where we got to with Invicara, and really there was two major things for us, and one was the vision is big, and there's a big vision there in terms of let's improve BIM, let's make BIM better. And there is a product out there today with BIM Assure, and I have no doubt in my mind that the guys in Invicara will make a huge success of that. And for us, it's what we can do from the manufacturer side of things to be able to add to what already has been thought about and is in development from the architects, the engineers, the contractors, the owners piece is what we love. And to be able to, it's very easy. One thing I did learn quickly is it's very easy to get lost in the technology of all of the things the technology can do and can't do without thinking about a bigger picture and a bigger vision. So when we kind of got in touch with the guys and started working through this, that became very obvious that we needed to set ourselves a big vision. And really that is to have our products as intelligent as they can be, even in their form as they sit in person, as well as how they would sit virtually. So this idea of the digital twin we think is very interesting. So managing building information, and this idea of having data-rich models, so the information in the models can be as good as they can be for whatever stakeholder needs that information. So we're very aware that the architect will have specific things they're interested in, the contractors will have specific things they're interested in, levels of detail that differ. So we're going to be building things around all of this, and then obviously from a manufacturer's standpoint as well, of as it goes in through the factory. But that piece is actually secondary to us. Most people might think it's the most important in terms of the efficiency side, but we like to think we're a customer-facing business. I think the speed at which the business is built, in some countries we have 20 companies, so there might be a case of, well, who is Kingspan? So I think this digital piece will give us a chance to streamline and look at who we are in its simplest form. So the high caliber expertise and the global footprint as well was huge for us, and the guys have already had some great successes across Ireland, the UK, the Middle East, and into North America. Fast track us on our BIM journey, and I've already met people in the room this morning here who I think can also help us on that journey, as well as the partners that we'll be looking for to come on this with us. And as I have on my slide here, broad-based industry solutions. So to be developing something new with Invicara that they can go out and sell to other businesses. We're totally comfortable with that and believe that that is the way forward. And obviously we want to be the early adopters, and I'm sure there'll be lots of pain as well as we go through that, but it will take us on a journey where we will learn, and into the next 10, 20 years that our business and how people interact with us, we believe, will be fundamentally different. And the role of the specifiers and all of that will change over time, of what people will be actually doing. And people will be really focused on outcomes of their buildings. What do I want my building to do, rather than really worrying about all of the ways of how to do it. So that is quite interesting. So looking at this just kind of in summary in terms of the different core areas for us, we talk about this from a customer standpoint, so we call it a customer experience and a digital program that are going hand in hand. So everything, as I said earlier, will start with the customer. About 18 months ago, we started mapping out customer journeys and looking at how people interact with us. And some of our customer journeys we were very proud of. You would stand up and say, wow, like, you know, the few touch points, it went extremely well, people got what they wanted. And in other cases, that is not the case. And we believe that the digital side of things can help with a lot of plugging of those, where some of those challenges lie. So the channel and the whole route to market, and then from a specification and a destination brand, we're hoping, you know, the whole piece here is that we digitalize this experience as much as possible. So for example, we did a survey just before Christmas across 900 people from our database. So that would be transactional contractors and architects who would have worked with us on some type of building over the last 12 months. And over 65% of them had used BIM at some capacity. Now I don't know that, you know, the exact detail, but at some capacity. So in some cases, you know, they had a BIM object, they strip out all the details and they use it in a model and that's it. And in some cases it goes right through to the operational side of things. So, you know, we're asking big questions of ourselves around what can we be doing around virtual reality and augmented reality and all around that whole specification piece, where you can make it easier for people to decide the type of products they want to put in their building. Our business is at a point now where we have such an array of products that we would like to think, in a lot of cases, be it an insulation material of some kind, that we would have a solution. And it could be under Kingspan or it could be another brand. And then on the relationship management side, this is where we're trying to get very sophisticated about how we manage our projects. And this is more so from the information around that building and where all of that can go, as opposed to the customer. Smart factories, in some parts of the world we're actually very advanced in this, and in others we need to absolutely take it to another level. So we have a program now and a team set up in terms of digitalizing this experience, because it's one thing doing it at the front end, but the factory needs to be able to take that information. So if I'm on site and I need an extra, whatever, half a metre of panel or flashing or whatever it might be, you know, we want to make it quick for orders to be able to go in and for the factory to be able to take that. And in some cases that's a long way from where we are today, and there still is a lot of paperwork in how businesses are operated. Our BIM journey here, you know, very quickly, you know, we see a whole circle here where from being able to choose the right types of products right through to, as I mentioned on earlier, the augmented reality, the virtual reality, how people interact with us, how orders are tracked, right through to the installation on site of the servicing of buildings. What role exactly we play in all of that, we're still working through, but BIM will be the enabler for all of this for us, and Invicara will be a core partner for us on that journey. And then the whole world of connected buildings. You know, with technology, there's a big question around, well, what R&D do we actually need to do with the product? Because will the technology do a lot of that for it, you know? So we're looking at some things, obviously you have sensors, you have very obvious things, but how far we want to take all that from a product level is an exciting journey for us as well. So what are we doing? So first and foremost, the people, the types of people. So we run a graduate program every year, and hopefully this year we're going to hire a lot of people in around the BIM side of things. There's probably about 15 to 20 people in our business with BIM in their title of some degree, but it's probably 10% of what they do. So, you know, upskilling, I guess, in this whole area, and selling. Like, I had a lot of responsibility on my shoulders last year in terms of selling these ideas at a board level, where the investment comes from, and that will obviously drive the change. So we need the people to be able to do it. And what's interesting, I was with my CEO yesterday, and he was just saying to me, the reaction that we got, you know, that I mentioned earlier, over the software investment and the people who want to get interested in it, is great. Obviously, there's going to be huge resistance in some areas. The investment side of it, as I touched on, partners, so as the people in this room and outside of this room, and lots of contacts that we will make around the world, because I honestly, fundamentally believe there is a starvation of wanting to know more about this topic and the detail. And I know there's companies here that do training and in-depth knowledge of all of this, but really on the partner side of things, for us it's about big vision and where we can go and where we can take this. And we might end up taking a particular geography and a segment of our products and doing something radical, and the appetite is there to do that, which is fantastic. And of course the data insights around, you know, having all this information to be able to plan and whatever we need to do within our business. And obviously, hopefully at some point, returns will come from this. But right now, it's absolutely seen as an investment and an innovation into the future of the construction industry, as opposed to the efficiencies it's going to bring. That is going to have to happen in time. But it's not absolutely today's agenda, because it would get in the way of some of the big stuff we have to do. That's it. Hope that was interesting. Okay. And Anne has no questions for me anyway.
What would be success for you after, let's say, 10 years of investing in? What would be?
Great question. Like, we would hope to see, like, if I go back to that statistic of the 65% of the survey that we did, like, we would like to see a BIM journey through our business with core. We think it's going to be with core partners, that you have X amount of those projects even in 2 years' time. So in 10 years' time, is that going to be 50-60% of our business? So where a building is starting with the BIM objects, but Kingspan is engaged in the part of that journey that it needs to be at a BIM, fully immersed at a BIM level with most of our projects. So I would imagine that the investment on the BIM side of things is going to be quite significant to get us there.
Hi, Jeff. My question is slightly related, but somewhat off field. There's a large push in the TC 442, which is standards-based, and the Germans have basically grabbed that section of, in Germany and Austria, they're leading the section on information exchange for materials, which would seem to be much more critical, or as critical, to a company like Kingspan. I'm wondering how you're interacting with that, or are you interacting with it?
Yeah, actually, we just touched on some of these things, and there's regulations in Holland as well, and touching around this area. I think it's going to be really important in terms of the information that's, you know, within the materials, that's understood, and it's the accurate information is in there, and that, you know, what they're saying is in the building is actually in the building, and all of that. So it is quite a big area, and I'm sure we will need to be, you know, involved in that at a more depth level. Yeah.
Yeah, just on the theme of this morning, facilitating the information of the Centre of Excellence in construction. So in Ireland there's fantastic innovation centres in all sorts of sectors. I mean, there's a Centre of Excellence for web content.
Yeah.
There's no Centre of Excellence for construction. There's no group. Just a thing from a manufacturer's point of view. I mean, do you think that's something that is important, that industry comes together and forms a centre where people are exploring excellence in construction?
Definitely. Are you talking specifically on any particular topic, or just in general?
In general.
Oh, definitely. And like, I would have done a lot of research and, you know, spent time in the Ryanairs of the world and the Googles and all the tech companies, and I was amazed at the level of collaboration that happens amongst direct competitors. I was actually very impressed by that, and I think you absolutely need collaboration. Like, there's plenty of, I wouldn't call it a centre of excellence, but there's plenty of forums and groups and committees that happen around the world, and I would have sat on plenty of them over the years But in terms of really driving change, if I look back at what actually has come out of all of that, I think you need a vision and really people to commit to it. So when it's part of, oh, we'll try and get along there, I would love to see us doing something like that, and it's even something I may get, lead or get involved with other manufacturers. But we need to be doing more of that thing, no question. Because this is about driving the industry on, as opposed to, at our core we have to sell more panels and insulation, but at the end of the day we have to drive the industry on, or we can't just do it. It won't happen itself, nor can we do it on our own.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.